Life is never easy. That's why we have to work and do everything we can to live. I mean, to survive, because with some people, the word live can be a bit luxurious. Haggard was born on a street, not an ideal place to start his journey in life. He only had a father who was always trying his best to help Haggard live without starving, or at least he hoped when Haggard grew up. The boy didn't feel hateful for why he didn't have a room with a Christmas tree whenever they sang the carol song on the street. Just like the other children, Haggard needed to study. In a classroom, an intelligent kid was listening to a great teacher about his dream job. At the same time, somewhere on the street, Haggard was watching his father stealing money and accessories from people. There would always be risks for an illegal business like that, and Haggard's father soon took his last breath for the job. A car rushed toward him while he was running away from police officers. It happened so fast, so hopefully he didn't feel any pain. Little Haggard became lonely in the world. From that day, he had to take care of himself. When the colorful lights spread over the city with noisy talk from the crowd, Haggard sat on the pavement. He chose the least boisterous place to stay. That was when Goons the First came to him. The rat was looking for something to eat in a dumpster, which made Haggard realize he needed to fill up his tummy too. The boy came close to the dumpster and had a look at the inside. A pizza box with 2 slices would be a great dinner. But little Goons was hungry too, and so Haggard gave the rat 1 slice as a reward for discovering the gold mine. Thanks to that generosity, Goons became his friend. The boy named the rat that annoying name. After a few days, Haggard found out Goons could be trained. The rat was highly intelligent with Haggard's interaction. It was time for Haggard to continue his father's career. Just like that, Haggard became a talented young man who attracted everyone around him. An amateur trickster, they called him. The rat was still there with him, but it wasn't Goons the First anymore. Sadly, the lifespan of a rat came around 12 months to 2 years. Goons the First was resting in peace. When a Goons died, Haggard would find others to train as a new generation of Goons. The Goons that followed Haggard in this time was the 10th. After a show, the money he earned from selling the stolen stuff could provide these two a small party over the weekend. Days went by. Haggard wondered if he would end up like his father. Sometimes he was scared death could come to him when he wasn't ready for it. On a starry night, he made a wish that in an unparticular way, his life would change into a new chapter. As he laughed at the thought of a house and a Christmas tree in the middle of the summer. Indeed, everything had changed unexpectedly on a hot summer night. While he was checking stuff that Goon stole after the show, there was a photo of a pretty woman standing in front of a small bakery. It wasn't too hard for Haggard to find the bakery when he could read the address behind the photo. Haggard could see there were a lot of delicious-looking cakes on the shelves through the clean glass. Then, Margaret showed up. She was making something on the table with a lot of candy canes around it. Haggard gave Goons the sign to sneak in and take their dessert out. They had stolen food before, though it was harder than pickpocketing. With a small pack of bread in its mouth, Goons tried to sneak out, but he didn't succeed. Margaret caught the rat. Haggard quickly made a plan to rescue his partner, and he was about to do that till Margaret did something that made him stop. Rats often disgust everyone. A girl like Margaret should be jumping around and screaming when she saw Goons, but she let Goons escape with her bread. It was very rare to see this kind of thing happen. At that moment, there was something about Margaret that made Haggard feel like he wanted to get to know her so badly. Since that day, Haggard kept letting Goons go into the bakery to steal things. The little rat was like a VIP customer of Margaret's. She even made a tiny table with different types of sweets on it every day. Haggard wondered if Margaret felt comfortable with a rat, would she feel the same with him? And if Haggard were a book, would Margaret judge him like an unworthy thing to read? Only when he mustered up his courage to meet her in person, then Haggard could have his real answer. Haggard crossed his fingers and then opened the door. Margaret was right in front of his eyes when the bell rang. They had never been this close before like that. Just like Haggard was afraid, Margaret looked at him with a bit of disappointment. Another VIP came to ask for free bakes. She gave him a plate of cupcakes and told Haggard if he was the rat turned into a homeless guy, then the person who wrote her story must really suck. She demanded a prince, not a homeless guy. Little did Margaret know, they were a pair of liars. Well, Haggard confessed his sin to her during the first meeting. Such a bad way to break the ice. Even with how kind Margaret was, she couldn't accept the fraud. Haggard had 3 chances to redeem himself. Haggard quit stealing things on the street, though he didn't tell Margaret about it. His performances could get a lot of attention, but less money than he expected. Haggard's income was mostly from stealing stuff. Haggard didn't have to do that illegal job anymore when he and goons could eat as many sweets as they could in Margaret's bakery. If no one bought them, Margaret had to throw them away. Haggard and goons didn't mind handling that for her. Basically, they eat on Margaret's sadness. A -1 for the first chance then. However, Haggard knew what he should do for his second chance. He asked Margaret if it was a good idea to let him perform in her bakery. He would get people's attention while Margaret sold her underrated cakes. The girl couldn't say no to that interesting plan, so they set to work. On performance day, there were a lot of people that came. They filled up the small bakery with laughs and chewing noises. The whole process happened very well, until Haggard decided to ruin it himself. Haggard thought everyone would accept goons just like Margaret. Why couldn't a rat be a pet? Yes, but not a street rat. And so everyone started to spit out what they were chewing. They couldn't handle a rat in a bakery. Sometimes a bad thing could be told faster than nice things. Margaret had to shut down her bakery. She disappeared for a while. Haggard knew he messed everything up, and soon he had to face the consequences. When he came back to the street to perform, everyone disgustingly looked at him. They knew what was in his pocket, the dirty little creature. No money, no food. Haggard and goons had to steal something to eat. They went to a small restaurant at the end street. Haggard gave goons a sign to sneak in and bring out a pack of sandwiches. Unfortunately, that mission was also the end of the rat. The chef who caught goons put him in a bag, then smashed the rat several times until he felt satisfied for punishing the little thief. Haggard couldn't hold his pain in, and he let it out through a distressing scream. Not all of the goons died because of old age. Some of them were ended during their missions. For all of his life, except Margaret and rats, no one wanted to be his friend, which made Haggard think more seriously about his purpose. In the end, he lost everything. Before Haggard did something stupid to himself, he came to find Margaret. He hoped the only person who did not disgust him could forgive him. Margaret already sold the bakery to find a new chance in a small town nearby. When she knew Goons was dead, she felt sorry for Haggard. Margaret couldn't leave him alone like that, but she didn't have enough money to pay for both of them. Haggard made a deal with Margaret that if she brought him with her, he would do everything Margaret said. Once again, Margaret couldn't say no to an interesting deal from Haggard. Life with Margaret was, of course, better than stealing on the street. But come to think of it, I wondered how Margaret felt about her, Haggard the First.